zoning.
No, ma'am, no discussion or consideration of the local zoning in that letter.
Those are the questions, all the questions that I have for Mr. Meadows at this time. I don't know if now is appropriate for cross-examination, or if you'd like me to call another witness.
Now is appropriate for Mr. Showalter to do cross-examination.
Mr. Meadows, the county doesn't dispute that poultry production is permitted by right in the A1 district, correct?
No, sir.
And does that use require any special approval, any use approval from the county?
It does not. There are standards that have to be met with regard to property size, depending on the zoning district, but it is a permitted use in the A1 district.
And the county does not have a separate definition for poultry production in the definition of the zoning code, does it?
No.
It's just considered an agricultural use?
Yes.
The county zoning code, section 22525B, does have a definition of poultry house, does it not?
That's correct.
And do you know what that definition is? Or
I can't.
Can I approach and provide you?
Yes.
And
Yes.
actually, I'd like to make sure that a complete copy of the county zoning ordinance is in the record, so I'll provide this to the witness, but I'd like it also to be marked as
Exhibit.
appendix exhibit.
He'll tell you what exhibit number it is.
It's Exhibit B, assuming that you accept that the letter from you on January 22nd, 2025 is Exhibit A.
Accept that, Mr. Showalter?
Yes.
Okay.
And actually, before you answer that, let me ask a couple other questions, Mr. Meadows. The production of poultry necessarily involves feeding the chickens, correct?
Yes.
And after they eat, they produce manure, correct?
I think a healthy chicken would produce manure, yes.
And poultry farmers have a practical need to handle the manure that their chickens produce, correct?
Yes.
To your knowledge, how is poultry manure handled in Wicomico County currently?
I believe it is stored most commonly within manure sheds.
And then what happens to it?
At such time, they're authorized to place it on fields before it's applied to fields.
And if the poultry grower is not also a grain producer, do they transport it off-site and/or sell it or give it to other people to use that product?
That I can't testify to.
Well, how would it leave a poultry farm that doesn't have a grain field?
I can't testify to how it leaves the field. Don't know.
Okay. Does the county require any permits for the transport of poultry manure from poultry farms?
The zoning does not require that, no, sir.
And does the county require any special use or approval for the application of poultry litter to grain fields?
No, sir.
Does the county require any special approval for the composting of poultry litter on site?
County zoning code does not address that, no, sir.
Does not address composting?
Not as a action associated with the poultry farm, no.
Okay. Could you turn to section 22525B and read for me the definition of a poultry house?
Any structure, including all related buildings and appurtenances designed and used for the growing of poultry. This includes, but is not limited to, fans, feed bins, litter, storage, manure sheds, incinerators, composters, and cold storage.
And you just testified that poultry houses are not a separate use. They're just defined as part of the agricultural activity, correct?
It was In 2016, the county council adopted legislation to define poultry houses and establish specific conditions for them.
That definition was adopted to establish those design or development standards, not to designate poultry houses as an independent use.
Yes.
Okay. And you testified that the county does not address composting in connection with poultry. Isn't it correct that the definition of poultry house specifically includes but is not limited to litter storage, manure sheds, incinerators, and composters?
Yes.
What would be composted on a poultry farm?
Well, chicken litter could be one, but there could be others items as well.
And what might be incinerated on a poultry farm?
That I don't know. The same.
Biomass, correct? Either litter or chickens. Is there anything else that comes out of poultry that would be incinerated?
Well, I assume there could be other activities on the farm that could be included with that incinerator, but yes, it would likely include deceased chickens, biddies, and the related materials. So yes.
But in order to be a composter or an incinerator that fits in this definition, it would have to be used in connection with the growing of poultry.
That's
So it
right.
wouldn't be an incinerator for wood products or straw or something independent of poultry, correct?
It is tied to the definition of poultry house, yes.
Okay. And could you turn to the table of uses, which we've attached at the back of that copy of the zoning ordinance? Mr. Meadows, in the A1 zoning district, for parcels of land that are between 5 and 20 acres, what is the use that poultry houses fall under in that table?
That would be under the agricultural uses
And what
and
use-
operations.
I'm sorry, I cut you off. Specifically, that would be agricultural operations?
Yes.
If you go back to 225-25B, the definition section, does the county code define agricultural operations?
No, sir, it does not.
Mr. Meadows, are you familiar with Section 225-67 of the code, which introduces the table of uses?
Yes, sir.
And subsection C of that, I'll just read it so you don't have to find it, but what it says, subsection C of 225-67, the presumption established by this chapter, meaning the zoning chapter, is that all permitted uses of land in the county are provided for within at least one zoning district. Is that correct?
Yes.
Could you repeat that for me, please, sir?
The presumption established by this chapter, meaning the zoning chapter, is that all permitted uses of land in the county are provided for within at least one zoning district. And Mr. Meadows, if you look at section 225-25A7, this is back in the definition section. I think you'll find that it says, when a term used in this chapter is defined elsewhere in the county code, but not in this chapter, the term shall have the meaning specified in that section of the code. You see that? It's section 225-25A7.
Yes, sir.
And you agree that agricultural operations is not defined in the definitions chapter of the zoning, in the zoning chapter of the code, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Do you have the full county code there? Do you have the right to
Yes.
farm chapter with you?
I do not.
The board can take notice of the county code and would request that you do so. Mr. Meadows, the definition of agricultural operations in the right to farm chapter of the county code, section 186-3. Agricultural operations includes but is not limited to all matters set forth in the definition of operation in section, what is now 5-403A2 of the Courts and Judicial Proceedings article of the code, of the state code. The production of all matters encompassed within the definition of farm product as defined in section 10-601 of the agricultural article of the state code. The cultivation and tillage of soil, the spreading of manure, lime, fertilizer, and the like, composting, spraying, production, harvesting, and processing of agricultural crops, raising poultry, a lot of other plant-related stuff, and any commercial agricultural procedure performed as incident to or in conjunction with such operations. So if the county code does not define agricultural operations, and it specifically says where a term is used in the table of uses that isn't defined in the code, but it's defined elsewhere in the code, that definition applies. So the definition of agricultural operations, which is broader than the zoning ordinance in the right to farm, is brought in by the interpretive rules of the county code to provide definition for agricultural operations. But I'm going to have you turn again to something a little more specific, because I don't think you need to reach that far to reach this conclusion. Is your testimony that no permit or approval for a different use is required for handling of litter from poultry operations, correct?
County zoning does not require any additional approvals for that.
And poultry houses are permitted by right as part of agricultural operations. There's not a separate poultry house use, correct?
Well, the poultry houses are addressed under another section of the code with standards that must be applied to the site, but it is a permitted use, yes, and meeting those requirements in the A1 district.
And there's no subset of poultry houses or poultry activities that's a separate use, correct?
Yes, sir.
And so the definition of poultry house is any structure, including all related buildings and appurtenances, designed and used for the growing of poultry, specifically including but not limited to fans, feed bins, litter storage, manure sheds, incinerators, composters, and cold storage, correct?
Yes.
Is your testimony that incinerators, which would burn biomass, probably would only be burning chickens or litter, correct?
I believe an incinerator is a different process of combustion.
It is a process of combustion, you agree?
It is.
And composting is a chemical process to break down biomass, correct?
That's correct.
And both of those are permitted by right in the A1 zoning district, correct?
For that definition, yes.
Now we're going to go to the representatives of council for the interested parties.
Mr. Meadows, in any of your communications with Cathro Farms, did they identify the quantity of chicken housed on any chicken houses on the property?
No, sir, that was not discussed.
Thank you, nothing further.
Okay, at this time, I would request Mr. Kiasafai to take the stand.
Good evening.
Good evening. Kia Safai, 125 North Division Street. I'm the Chief Building Inspector at Wicomico County, and I have been sworn in.
Thanks, sir.
Thank you. And Mr. Safai, what are your duties as the chief building inspector?
My division primarily handles building permits and inspections, code enforcement, and the division does oversee the zoning administrator position as well.
So it's fair to say that you are familiar with the permit application in this case?
That is correct.
And just so the record is clear, the permit application has been accepted as Exhibit I. On that application, what was the basis for the intended use?
The intended use was listed as a storage facility, pole building for the purpose of storage.
Did there come a time that you and the Planning and Zoning Department realized that there may have been, for lack of a better word, an issue with this project?
Correct. During the permitting and inspection process, or during the construction of a building, we do several levels of inspections. Pole building is a pretty simple structure, so we do a footer, foundation, framing, and final inspection. A couple of those had already been performed, the footer and foundation. We had received a call from the community that the use of the building might be much different than just a typical storage. Our framing and final inspection was still open, so I did visit the property because I had an open permit, and noticed that the structural design that was submitted to the department as a storage facility was significantly different than the actual structure that was being constructed.
Okay. So upon information from the community, you took it upon yourself to visit the property to investigate and take photos. Is that correct?
Correct, but also the fact that there's an open permit basically allows us to take a look at the, how the construction process is evolving.
I'm going to have them identify where the building is on this photo. I'm going to show you what I hope is accepted as Kelly's exhibit. I think this would be L. This is an aerial photo of the site. Is that correct?
That is correct.
What I'd like you to do is just, if you could mark on this photograph where the storage building is.
There you go. There's now a hole in there.
There's no hole where the building is. That's fine. So, at this time, I would ask that this be received as our exhibit L. Thank you. Oh, yeah.
Mr. Chair, without objection, is that received?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. And if I could turn your attention to the permit application itself, I'm going to show you our copy, but it's already been accepted. Is that the permit application?
Yes, it is.
And I see at the bottom there, there's some handwriting at the bottom, is that your handwriting? Is it, I'm sorry.
That's Exhibit I for the record, if the board's trying to follow along. Otherwise, it is up on the screen.
At the bottom here? Or here?
In this section here.
Oh, yes, that is my handwriting. When we do the reviews, obviously, we ask for the cost of the project, and then we have our own internal method of estimating what the cost would be. A lot of times it's lowball. So, to give the applicant basically the, the ability to price it out the way they would like to.
So I guess
The benefit of the doubt. So the project cost was initially noted as $12,000. Our estimate came out to minimum $144,000 as a storage building, as a pole building.
And so what was the basis for that change?
We calculated by the area multiplied by $20 per square foot. So originally it was quoted as, it was listed as a 45 by 160 foot building. So if you multiply 45 by 160 times 20, you come up with the $144,000.
And when you got to the property, you did take the pictures in, that are noted in Exhibit H, correct?
I did. Those are my photos.
I'm not going to take you through every single one, but I do want to highlight a few. We could go to H8. Okay. Mr. Safai, can you just explain what's depicted in that photograph?
Yeah, when I entered the building, other than, once again, other than a lot of the structural variances compared to the original plan that was submitted, I did notice a lot of equipment that referred to Biorefinery and different names of the company that was a biomedical or biochemical company. Those, I believe, are a series of pipes. I took photos of it because the name of the company was on there, so I was trying to figure out how Mr. Cathoria might be connected to that company, because the application was for storage and not that. So,
And can we move on to photograph H10, please? And what was the significance of this photo to you?
at the time, again, that was quite different than the application that was submitted. The application was supposed to be just a standard pole building, which is just basically a shell. That, just from experience, looked like a concrete platform with connections that would carry some type of heavy equipment or heavy, item. In my conversation with Mr. Cathoria, I found out that that basically supports the crane system, apparently, that would move product around.
And moving on to photograph H18, please. And what was the significance of this photograph?
Again, I took the photo that was right at the entrance when you walked into the building. I wanted to get a name of the company that was associated with the equipment that was in there. To me, it seemed like maybe a transformer, or where high voltage would be brought into the building and then dispersed out to different equipment.
And can we move on to H19, please? And the significance of this?
Again, I was taking photos of everything that was there. To me, that's basically just a container. I don't know if it's a container to move products around, but I was just taking photos of different items in the building.
Okay, and finally, photograph H15, please. Same questions.
Yeah, so again, I went in there with the expectation of seeing a storage building. Once again, the structural construction of the building was quite different than what was originally presented. When I saw the biorefinery listings, and then I saw what seemed to be oil products, I did take pictures of them to try and identify what the actual liquid that might have been in there.
And to be clear, though, this was obviously not operational. It was just sort of in pieces.
It was not operational. That is correct.
After your visit to the property, did you meet with the other members of the Planning and Zoning Department to discuss your findings?
I did. Again, my initial visit was to take a look at the permit that was issued for the construction of a storage building. When I did visit the property, obviously what was constructed was not consistent with the design. There was a lot of constructional elements in there, such as a platform, the bolts that would carry heavy equipment, or a crane. So it was within my authority to put a stop work order on it just for that purpose alone. Having seen some of the other items in there, which then would tell me that this is more of a processing facility, which would have fallen under a completely different constructional design criteria, I brought it back to the Planning and Zoning Department just for administrative review from my side of the construction, and also for zoning to take a look at whether that was even permitted use at that facility.
Those are all the questions that I have for Mr. Safai.
Joe Walter?
Thank you. Mr. Safai,
Good evening.
is it correct that the property owners applied for actually 2 building permits and constructed 2 buildings, 2 structures?
It is correct. One was the pole building, which was basically, it was listed as storage. And there was a smaller building on a second permit that was listed once again as a shed storage facility next to this one.
And they were both applied for and issued at the same time, correct?
They were both applied for. When we do the plan reviews, again, when you do a pole building, there's a structural aspect to the plan review, and there's a use and occupancy aspect to the review. When you refer to building codes, the International Building Code, which governs any kind of facility such as this for storage or processing or assembly, educational, whatever, they all have different criterias of code compliance. A processing facility is listed as completely different than a storage facility. So this was reviewed for code compliance within the storage capacity and not a processing facility with, again, the construction of the cranes and concrete and so on. So the permit was issued as basically a shell building for storage.
Understood. But the only issue before the board tonight is the question of use.
Well,
Not a
you
question
asked,
about
I just answered the question.
Okay. The second building permit that was issued at the same time, on the same date, building permit 31211.
Correct.
Sound familiar?
Yep.
And is it accurate that the estimated construction cost for that 12 by 40-foot building was $12,000?
I have to calculate it. I don't know.
Okay.
12 times 40 times 20 is 480. That would be 9,600. I'm good at math. I don't need to see it. It's 9,600, not 12,000.
Would it surprise you if the value the county used on the permit is $12,000?
Because the way the county calculates, just like I said, we have our own internal way of calculating, and we allow the ownership to basically offer their permits. We go by the highest number that is calculated. So in that case, the 12,000 was over the 9,600 that we calculated. So the permit was issued based on what the applicant supplied $12,000.
Which matches the $12,000 that was on the other application, correct?
Coincidentally, yes, but the other application was $144,000, not $12,000.
And when the county reviewed the construction of these buildings, did the county review the poultry house provisions of the code?
The poultry houses,
The poultry house provisions of the county code?
we review the plan that is supplied. So the application that was supplied was based on a pole building with a structural plan that was offered to the county. So that's what we review.
But based on Mr. Meadows' testimony, all related buildings used for the growing of poultry are considered poultry houses, correct?
When it comes to building codes, we have a totally different terminology than what zoning has. If you, again, refer to the international building codes, and I have a book downstairs, I can let you look at it. The international building codes identifies different buildings per the use and occupancy, the style of construction. For example, International Building Commission, if you want the educational aspect of it, there's 10 different construction types from 1A to 1B to 2B all the way to 5B.
So I understand all of
Well,
that.
let me, if you don't mind, because you're mixing two things together. So when we review this, we review it as an S2 category, which is a building for storage, versus an F2 category, which would be a processing facility. That's how the International Building Code identifies building construction under those criteria. And each one of those has a different review process. So this building was reviewed purely as a pole building shell for storage.
Okay, but so I'm actually not mixing two. I'm working to identify that there's, and then you just did that for me. Your role is to apply the building code
Yeah.
and to look at building code considerations.
Correct.
The use determination is made by Mr. Meadows in the planning and zoning
No,
department.
no.
Not for purposes of application of the building code, but for purposes of whether the use is permitted on the property. That's not something you have any role in.
No. When I review a building, I have to know the use and occupancy. So
Yeah, but understand my question. You have to understand the use for purposes of determining what code applies for the building purposes.
Correct.
You don't make a use determination for zoning purposes.
I'm his zoning administrator. Mr. Meadows is a zoning administrator.
Thank you. No further questions.
Sir, you were present on the property when you took those photos,
I was.
and you got to the property by car.
I did.
You got out of your car, and you walked around the property.
I did.
And at any point on the property, did you see a single chicken?
A single.
Chicken?
There was one tiny little dead chick right in front of my foot. Other than that, no.
All right, so you didn't hear any chickens?
I didn't hear any chickens.
You didn't hear a poultry house full of chickens squawking?
No.
Did you smell any chickens?
No.
Did you smell anything that smelled like chicken manure?
No.
No further questions.
No? That's it for you? All right. Do we have any more points
Yeah.
we want to make at this point in time?
We do have two of the interested parties that would like to give statements. And so at this time, if I may call Greg Talent.
I guess I'll sit right here. I've been sworn in. It's Greg Talent from Wicomico County. My address is 28061 Atkins Road. And I'm at ground zero for this building. And I guess I'll get started. We'd like to know why we wasn't notified what was going on. No kind of signage, no kind of warning. We were blindsided. I didn't find out about this until February 1st. A neighbor 8 houses down on Atkins Road came to me and told me what was going on. blindsided. We're concerned about the pollution, and also my well is 25 feet from the property line, which is roughly about 220 feet from this building. And I'm concerned about my health. It's like a hazard to my health from the pollution that it's going to cause, and the smell, the gases, the fumes, the noise, the traffic, all the above. I mean, he was out of compliance. He said it was going to be a storage building, but it turned out to be a biorefinery. Now, how can you explain that? Let me ask you this. Would you feel safe, and would you like to have a biorefinery within 193 feet? Would you like to live there? Raise your hand. No hands. That's what I thought. We were blindsided, and I'm not happy about it. All these people here, they're affected by this bad decision that Raj had made. Everybody's scared. I mean, we've been in limbo ever since I found out about this. And we're upset. What he done, he lied, and he put the planning and zoning on the spot. That's a slap in the face. We're upset. Do you blame me? We got over 100 people here. Maybe we want answers. We don't want this in our neighborhood. We have daycares. We have retired people with asthma, lung problems. I just retired about a year and a half ago. I didn't sign up for this. I don't want this. I'm 400 feet back off the county road. I moved back there back in '86 just to get away from people like this. And now he's invaded our privacy. On top of that, like I said a while ago, my well is 25 feet. We're on top of the Paleo water channel. We get the best water around. And this Paleo, it's going to last for us a long time, as long as it's not polluted, contaminated. The Paleo feeds the city of Salisbury. We got to protect this. It's the only one we're ever going to have. Anyway, he's made a bad mistake by doing this. I mean, he's lied to everybody. How can you trust him now? When you tell one lie, you got to tell another lie to cover up that lie. It's just a vicious cycle. And he's funded by all these people, MDE, MDA, University of Maryland. They say it's grant money. It's not grant money. It's taxpayers' money. Our money. Thank you.
The popularity contest.
Well, you see how we're concerned. Anyway, I'm done. Thank you.
So just for purpose of clarification, the county code doesn't prohibit uses in the Paleo Channel overlay as a result of this denial of the application.
What did you say?
I said that the county code specifically addresses prohibited uses in the Paleo Channel overlay. The department did not deny the permit on the grounds that the parcel is located on the Paleo overlay zone or that the proposed action is prohibited in the Paleo Channel overlay zone.
So what does that mean?
So just a point of clarification, what you're saying is that that wasn't the basis for what the county
That was not the basis. It's not
in question here, but
it wasn't specifically addressed as to why the zoning administrator made his decision.
And so that was not part of the decision.
Correct.
And so if I could just make one statement, I think that the raise of the concern about the channel being there is what's being said, and we're not sure if the county looked into that or not, or if they knew the full intended use of the property when they made that determination.
Okay.
Okay, if we could call the next witness.
As a point of clarification, are Mr. Showalter, Ms. Witz, are you waiving cross-examination of Mr. Talent?
I don't have any questions.
Correct. I'm
Okay,
waiting.
thank you.
Okay, so if we could next call Brandon Fletcher.
My name is Brandon Fletcher, live in Wicomico County at 9191 Hickory Mill Road. Also own the adjacent property. It's a 48-acre parcel. Have about 900 feet adjoining the property we're discussing tonight.
You've been sworn or affirmed, sir?
I have been sworn, yes. Sorry.
So that's a parcel, is that parcel 8637?
I'm not certain of the parcel number. Can I use this for a second?
Oh, okay, I see it.
You should, yeah.
Yeah, 28026.
Yes, 28026. I want to read two definitions that kind of pertain basically out of sir. Okay, sorry. Out of the IBC, International Building Code, Chapter 2 definitions. It's very similar to the zoning definition of agriculture. The structure, it's Chapter 2, a structure designed and constructed to house farm implements, hay, grain, poultry, livestock, or other horticultural products. This structure shall not be a place of human habitation or a place of employment. Where agricultural products are processed, treated, or packaged, nor shall it, I don't know if my microphone's not working, or treated or packaged, nor shall it be a place used by the public. The second definition is out of Chapter 3. It's occupancy, classifications, and use. Factory Industrial Group F. Factory Industrial Group F occupancy includes, among others, the use of building or structure or a portion thereof for assembling, disassembling, fabricating, finishing, manufacturing, packaging, repair, or processing operations that are not classified as a Group H hazardous or Group S storage occupancy.
You want that as an exhibit, sir?
I believe it's already been submitted. Did you submit these? Or?
No, we did not.
No, okay, yes. You.
Mr. Chair, they're received without objection, correct?
Correct.
So first off, I want to commend the county and thank them for stopping this facility and acknowledging it as an industrial operation. As I said, you know, I own the adjacent 48-acre parcel. It's a generational farm. It's been the family for over 70 years now. I hope to hand it down to my son. As well, my family owns 3 other residences and accumulated 110 acres within less than a mile radius. And basically kind of read what I've written now. Today I stand before you to discuss an important issue regarding land use. I think I'm just going to, can everybody hear me okay?
Yes.
All right. Today I stand before you to discuss an important issue regarding land use and zoning in Wicomico County, specifically for the appropriateness of establishing a biorefinery in an A1 agricultural zone district. First and foremost, we must understand the primary purpose of A1 zoning as defined in the Wicomico County Zoning Code. The A1 agricultural district is intended to support agricultural activities such as farming, crop production, and livestock rearing. The code outlines the intent of the A1 zone to preserve the rural character of our community, promote agricultural viability, and maintain the aesthetic and environmental integrity of our farmland. Introducing a biorefinery into this zone could disrupt these essential functions. A biorefinery operates primarily as an industrial facility, processing biomass to produce biofuels, biochemicals, and other products. This classification places it firmly within the industrial sector, which is governed by a different zoning regulations and standards than those that apply to agricultural operations. According to the Wicomico County Zoning Code, Section 225-27, industrial uses are not permitted in A1 zones, as they conflict with the agricultural intent of the district. It is my opinion that Mr. Kathuria has attempted to backdoor his way into approval by permitting a storage building. As is seen in his submissions for the grant, for his applications to MDE for his air permit, he knows full well the intent for the building. In doing so, he has also avoided necessary site plans that would identify areas of impact that would require drainage and additional retention areas. He's avoided necessary containment design for the hazardous materials he intends to produce. While the building may be adequate for farm storage, it does not incorporate proper design for the plant he intends it to house. It is not designed for any blowout walls, fire suppression systems, no fire rated assemblies have been provided for in this design. No code review was submitted in his application to the county. Furthermore, the presence of a biorefinery could lead to increased traffic, noise, potential environmental concerns such as emissions and waste management issues. These factors are inconsistent with the goals of preserving the rural character and tranquility of our agricultural zones are meant to uphold. This proposed plant is not even in operation, and already we are experiencing increased commercial truck presence for some reason. We're seeing tractor trailers moving on Hickory Mill Road at 11:30 at night, 3 o'clock in the morning. As well, the environmental impact was brought up. It is built over top of the Paleo Water Channel, with no containment in place. It could leach into, the Paleo Channel. This applies more than just the people here, more than the, close proximity counties. The Paleo Water Channel serves the city as well. There's a larger group of people that will be affected if there's a contamination issue resulting from this. The potential for industrial operations to impact our neighboring farms and residential areas cannot be overlooked. It's my understanding that this appeal is now presented as an accessory use. To be an accessory to the poultry house, that require them to be operational. Myself and neighboring properties have not observed any active poultry operation or production in approximately a year. I myself have a poultry house of similar age, design, and size on my property. When we inherited it, after consultation with multiple poultry companies, we could not secure a contract to produce. This was due to the design of the structure having post supports within the span of the building. These posts impede the equipment that the poultry capturers use now. They run through with, basically, it's a small loader that fans out, and it runs along the walls. With those posts in place, they can't run that equipment through, and they're no longer interested. It requires too much manpower to capture the chickens. So nobody was interested. I would speculate that Mr. Cathuria cannot secure contracts to become a producer. And I would certainly request proof of this if you're even contemplating his appeal. As well, it's also my understanding that the volume he intends to operate, the 3 houses that he has on the site do not produce sufficient quantities of manure to keep it running and operational 24/7 like he proposed. This would require supplemental sources of manure be brought in. This also supports it not being an accessory if he's bringing in more product to produce. Additionally, the A1 zone is characterized by larger minimum lot sizes and specific building regulations tailored for agricultural structures. Wicomico County Zoning Code specifies these requirements in section 225-59, which details the lot size and dimensional requirements for agricultural uses. The infrastructure required for a biorefinery, such as large buildings, extensive parking, processing equipment, would not only violate these regulations, but also fundamentally alter the landscape and use of the land designated for agriculture. In conclusion, while biorefineries may play a vital role in the renewable energy landscape someday, establishing one in an A1 zone district in Wicomico County is not appropriate. We must prioritize the preservation of our agricultural land, protect the interests of our farmers, and maintain the rural character of our community. Let us commit to ensuring that our zoning regulations reflect our values and support sustainable land use practices that benefit all residents of Wicomico County. Thank you for your valuable time. I encourage you to stand by the county's stance that this is an industrial operation and is not appropriate in an A1 agricultural zone.
Showalter?
Not from me,
No
thank you.
questions? Thank you, sir. Questions from the board at this point in time? Okay. Thank you, sir.
So if I may, I summarize the other interested parties' concerns, and then we have a set of exhibits.
Back off just a little bit.
Yes.
It's just kind of crackling.
Oh, sorry.
Sorry.
Is that better? Do I need this?
Well,
Yes. I do.
Probably.
Okay. Yes. And then we have just a list of exhibits that we have that we'll provide to the board just to provide some supportive background to why the interested parties are raising a lot of these concerns.
I may just make a note of objection for the record. Ms. Diamond's not sworn, she's an attorney. So summarizing other people's concerns as testimony, if you're not going to accept it as testimony, and it's just argument, then I don't have an objection.
Okay.
If it's testimony, they need to be under oath and subject to cross-examination.
okay.
I would just like to summarize concerns to be raised that they would like the board to consider.
Again, my only objection is if you're considering that as testimony, that's inappropriate. If it's argument,
I would say it's argument.
there's no factual basis for the argument, but she can make it. I'll still object.
Chairman, if I can add, the board's rules on admission of testimony is fairly flexible, and it can be altered in the interest of time. If the board would prefer to have all of the interested parties make statements, it would be very lengthy and time-consuming. And so we would ask for some flexibility, but if opposing counsel would like to cross-examine it, we understand that as well.
I think it's a matter of which interested parties that you feel are most relevant to your position that have not already had their comments expressed by the 2 previous people who have testified that are going to bring in new thoughts and so forth, that they, if you prefer to have that information on the record, then that's the action and the direction that you should take if they are here and able to do that. You concur, counsel?
Mr. Showalter, is there an objection to them just admitting their exhibits at this time?
I haven't seen them. I don't know what the
Okay.
actual, I just like to see them and understand what they are.
Because
Can we have one more, we can have one more interested party give testimony and then present the exhibits?
Right, and do you have a copy of your
Yes, for everyone.
Showalter to see
Yes.
as you're going through the next interested party?
And if he would like to give testimony, is Terry Sell available to give testimony?
My name is Terry Sell. I live at 28096 Atkins Road. I have been sworn in.
Yes, sir. You may proceed.
Like one of the other speakers, we just kind of found out about this a couple of months ago. And we're pretty much directly across the street. The question about health concerns about the burning of this manure and possibly other dead material. I know I have allergies. There are some other people that have problems. Atkins Road is a very narrow road, and these trucks that have been coming and going are over the center line. I've lost 2 mailboxes recently. I'm not sure how. But, you know, we have a residential community, an agricultural presence for sure that has been there for quite some time. And this facility seems to me, I'm not an expert per se, but it seems to be a facility that is belonging in an industrial type of setting and is a possible hazard to the wells in our area. It's certainly a hazard with these trucks coming and going, and in our community, as I said, on Atkins Road particularly, it's pretty narrow, and there's a constant stream of kids riding bicycles, people walking their dogs, and it's very uncharacteristic of anything else in the general area. And it appears to me that it definitely belongs in an industrial area. So that's basically what I wanted to communicate.
Showalter?
No objections.
Nope. Thank you, sir.
And then just to close, the other concern that has been raised by many of the interested parties is the health impacts of breathing in the excess dust and PM emissions, particulate matter emissions that this biorefinery will generate or be dealing with. And if I can just mention Mr. Ray Dillon, he lives within 200 feet to the east of the property, and he has breathing problems that can be exacerbated by asbestos. Actually has them because of asbestos exposure during his time in the military, and he's concerned that the dust and emissions will exacerbate his health problems. And then Howard Dale Smith, he's lived in the area for 31 years, and has worked his whole life to pay for his home and property and intended to retire there. He also has asthma issues and has to use inhalers now to help him breathe all the time. He felt very blindsided by learning about the proposal, and he feels like the result may be that he won't be able to live there at the place that he's worked for to purchase and live for the remainder of his life and into his retirement, and that his permanent home will have a plummeting market value, and therefore he will essentially not be able to live there, but it will be very difficult for him to sell it because of the declining property values. Which brings me to some of the exhibits that we have that we'd like to introduce in the record, and we have copies for everyone. I'm just going to mention a few that I think would be relevant to the testimony that you've already heard and that are different from any of the information, that the county has provided. And why don't we hand these out now so we can explain? We don't want to get them confused with the other exhibits, but there is an index attached to the packet.
This is just all one exhibit, so it's not me passing it to you.
The way we have organized these is by...
What's the,
Well, I'm trying to figure that out, whether it's been
If I may.
received collectively.
So the exhibit, there's an exhibit list, sorry. There's an exhibit list that we have provided with the packet, and each item is identified in the index, which is the first page. We have them identified by letters, but since you already have exhibits entered into the record by letters, there's a blank spot. You can renumber them as you feel is necessary. And I just want to point out a few that we'd like you to consider at this time. So the first one would be our Exhibit A, which might be a different exhibit for you. And this is a proposal that International Biorefineries submitted to the Maryland Department of Agriculture describing the project. And of note, within it, it includes some information about